My name is Kiri. I trained as a teacher a long time ago, English with special needs, and I've taught in lots of different settings, in a prison, in schools, in Australia, everywhere. I've done supply, I've done primary, I've done everything. But I've been doing this for the past year, teaching migrants English. Some are refugees, some are not. What I focus on in this charity is trying to help migrants get employment.
What are common challenges that migrants face when they're seeking employment?
Well, the most obvious one and the biggest hurdle, I would say, is not speaking English. It's very difficult. So, they come here and they want a job, but they can't speak English. It's just very difficult for them to find jobs. The criteria or the application process is so opaque, and you would really need to know a lot about English culture in order to get through. If you're sort of an English-speaking person born in England or Europe and you want to go and live in America, it's probably easier if you're highly trained. If you're highly trained and you come from a war zone, it's more difficult, because how do you prove that you have those qualifications and that experience? Never mind the language. Even if you do speak the language, that's very difficult. Sometimes they come, I've had students and they send me their CV and I look through it, or I have a session with them and I help them write their CV. That can be tricky because they can't remember where they were 30 years ago, as you can imagine, but anyway, and they haven't done one for years. Well, the main thing is they need to learn English. There need to be far more English lessons. I mean, when we go to, sometimes there are sort of recruitment fairs in like Longsight Library or somewhere like that. We have people queuing down the stairs to get to do lessons, and they don't exist. We should be offering that, and we don't. And I don't see much happening with the new government, to be honest. But I really don't. They're scrimping and saving on everything. But I would like to see far more English lessons. That would make a huge difference to improve everyone's English. That's the number one thing, because then everyone feels part of the whole culture. They understand what's going on, they get it. And we have lovely classes here. You saw today people from all around the world. We're all chatting, they're meeting everyone else. It's lovely. But the number one thing, in terms of employment, I would definitely try and speed up recognising qualifications from abroad. We have jobs that need filling. We've got an NHS that has a deficit in terms of healthcare workers, and we have people here that could do it. But it's extremely tricky trying to. I wouldn't say no one's doing anything about that. That's not true. And there are organisations that work exclusively for that. But we need to make it easier to recognise other qualifications. And if they're not recognised, how can we train them up so that they can be? We need these people, but we need to be sensitive to people whose livelihoods are undermined by it, and it does happen. Overall, it's much better for a country to have immigration, but we need to be sensitive about it. I just think, like everything, you need to think about everybody, and immigration is fantastic. It's think about for me, number one thing in life is food, and just think about incredible. The food culture in Britain is amazing. That's all because of immigration, and it just makes life more interesting. And even if you weren't interested in any of that, we need these people. We're not reproducing fast enough. We need people, and it's we have to have these people, and that's the world we live in. You cannot turn back the clock. We live in a global economy, in a global environment. You cannot possibly change that. But it's okay to say, I feel a bit weird, my local church has turned into a mosque. I think people should be allowed to talk about that without being labelled racist. And then we can maybe talk about it and just say, well, it is a mosque, but actually you can visit on Tuesdays, or is there some other place you'd like a church, or I understand you feel difficult. And I think we haven't been sensitive enough to people who have found the pace of change very fast. And you don't win by beating people over the head with a hammer and telling them they're racist and bigoted. It doesn't convince anyone the other way. It just makes them double down more. And I think we didn't do that. But all the evidence is that migration is fantastic for a country, and economically it's imperative. So I am all for it. I mean, I love my job and I love my students. I think they're fantastic. They're so hardworking and interested and polite, and They're just lovely people. And they're the ones often who've had the drive and get up and go to come to a new country and say, right, this is really rubbish where I'm living. I'm going to try something new. I'm going to try something different. And the evidence is that they're here in this lesson learning English. They're trying really hard. It's extremely admirable in my view. Well, we do run a course called British Values, and that's teaching, which is important because some of the things that would be acceptable in some of their countries is not acceptable here, and you have to learn that. You know, you're not going to know that instinctively. So we do run a course for that. We do a lot of that through art, and I think there's some drama they do that through as well. So we do British Values where they learn that. In terms of new identities, I mean, this has been going on for centuries. It's very difficult for families because they want, I see this with my children's friends. My children went to a school which was mostly Asian. And, some of the families are very resistant to the children becoming English. They don't like it. Great to give your children 2 languages. It's fantastic because kids pick up the language. If they're from primary school, they pick it up like that. They don't, it's fine. I think it's great to speak. I think you should speak your home language at home. I would encourage that because all the evidence is that the more languages you speak, the easier it is to learn other languages. So, obviously dual language kids, they might talk a bit later, but what does it matter? Like a couple of months in this lifetime, they've ended up with 2 languages and they're far more likely to pick up another language. So it's a great bonus and a boon. So I would never say, don't speak Hindi or Urdu or Spanish or anything. Speak those languages. It's really important. I do think you need to learn English though. I really do. I really do. I think you have to. I think it's very hard and I don't think there's enough training, but I think it's doable and it should be done more.